Hey everybody, Danny Roddy. I just wanted to thank you for clicking on this video. I wanted to thank you for subscribing. And I've only been doing these videos for a few weeks now, but the viewership is just amazing and the comments are great, and I've just been receiving lots of support from the videos, so I sincerely appreciate it. Today I want to talk about a common question that I get very often, and it usually goes something like this. Dear Danny, you're great work, but you're very confused. Androgenic alopecia and thyroid-driven hair loss are two different things. So unfortunately, you're very confused, and I just wanted to clarify this for you. So I just wanted to clarify, I guess, what androgenic alopecia even is, and is that a good name for pattern hair loss, which I tend to call it. And I just think that name, because it implies that androgens and genetics are the cause of the problem, confuses just endless amounts of people. And so I just want to maybe clarify my position, and I've cherry-picked a bunch of quotes from my notes here, and it's not exhaustive. There's lots more like this, but I thought these were some good ones for a video. So long story short, if you're interested in any of this, download my book for free at my website, dannyroddy.com. It came out in 2013, and you can also get it on Amazon for like 99 cents. Or you can watch Organizing the Panic, or aka the Baldness myth on YouTube. And it has a bulk of the ideas here, so if these kind of pique your interest, there are more resources to learn about this idea. And also raypete.com, of course, which a lot of the physiology is Ray's unique point of view, and Ray is just obviously a huge inspiration, and a huge inspiration person-wise as an incredible human being. So with that out of the way, let's get into this video. And I wanted to start off with this quote in 1881. So this was before James B. Hamilton did his very famous castrate and eunuch experiment, where he found that injecting castrates or eunuchs, or people with damaged testicles, with testosterone, they would go bald. So this is in 1881. James B. Hamilton's experiments, I think, were in the 1940s. And so this is from a book, George M. Beard, in a book called American Nervousness. And he says, the increasing popularity of baldness is one of the minor but most instructive expressions of nerve sensitiveness. Among savages in all parts of the earth, baldness is unusual, except in extreme age, and gray hairs come much later than they do with us. So common is male baldness in our large cities that was once a deformity, an exception is now almost the rule, and an element of beauty. One may be bald without being very nervous, but the general prevalence of baldness comes from the general prevalence of nervousness. And so I would argue that this American nervousness was the intellectual stepchild to Hans Selye's. I think Selye did his work throughout the 1930s, 40s, and 50s. But I think this is the intellectual stepchild to Hans Selye's general adaptation syndrome, or just general view of metabolic stress. I wanted to fast forward to 1950, and this is a paper I've quoted before. It's by Saz et al. And they found that, they say, in many pattern baldness patients, we encountered various types of fixed smiles, and a few a rather striking characteristic expression that best described a toothy smile. Such rigid facial expressions are thought to reflect, psychologically speaking, defensive attitudes. Wilhelm Reich, in his book Character Analysis, pointed out what he called muscular armor as a frequently observed semantic reflection of character armor. Character armor refers to the psychologic defenses of a neurotic personality, which serve as protection from feelings of insecurity and anxiety. So you could easily frame this as, sure, you know, the person is going bald, and therefore they develop this, if this is even accurate, they develop this character armor and anxiety and depression and things like that. But I would argue that the same things responsible for that type of mood and orientation towards the world, or like anxiety, depression, insecurity, I think those hormones driving those feelings are the same ones causing the unfavorable changes in hair growth and interrupt the hair cycle. So let's fast forward to 1981, and this is the first time, one of my first references, I think, that where low thyroid function is said to be related to so-called androgenic alopecia. So they say hypothyroidism was present in the majority 65% of all hair loss cases independent of all other factors. And the second was a 23% incidence of unrecognized hypothyroidism in males over 30 years of age with typical pattern baldness. And so again, this can be framed like 23%, that's nothing. I would argue that, I don't know, I would have to go back and read this paper or read the specifics about it. I don't know if they actually included it, but diagnosing hypothyroidism is like a completely different video. If you go to your MD, I would put a wager on him checking a test called the TSH, and the TSH is allegedly the gold standard of measuring anybody's thyroid function. And this test is so unreliable, it has been moved from decade to decade down and become tighter and tighter. And what was likely to be hypothyroidism a few years ago is not, what was likely to slip through the cracks and not be hypothyroidism a few years ago is hypothyroidism now. And so it's just a dumb test to base somebody's thyroid health on. And I think the older tests in the 1930s, like the cholesterol level, hyperkeratinemia, whether the person is cold all the time, their hands and feet, and just like lots of different things, like if the person has lost their ability to enjoy life is another huge one, I think. So let's skip ahead 4 years to 1985, and they say, experimentally, thyroid hormone can produce increased amounts of testosterone binding protein or sex hormone binding globulin and can increase the rate of hair growth in animals, which explains why the use of thyroid hormone in androgenic alopecia. However, significant clinical benefit has not been shown with this technique, although it does enjoy a scientific rationale. Androgenic alopecia is probably a series of diseases with a common end pathway. So just a few years after 1985, in 1989, I think this paper is by Schmidt et al., and this was on female androgenic alopecia, and they say in 48% of the patients we found either hypothyroidism or hyperprolactinemia. This suggests that both conditions may contribute to clinical picture of female androgenic alopecia as they interfere with the androgen metabolism. And so just a few weeks ago, we talked about a paper from 2016 that showed that males had higher levels of prolactin. And prolactin, another paper said that prolactin could mimic the effects of androgens. And so I think if you're losing your hair and you want to figure out why and you want to be proactive, I think it's super important to measure the prolactin level. And I'm not a doctor, but in my limited experience, usually I talk to people and their prolactin level is like over 10, and it might be good way under that, maybe close to the bottom range, because I think one paper used like 2 to 7, but even 7 might be too high. So that's just a thought, but definitely measure prolactin. When the thyroid goes down, the prolactin typically goes up in my limited experience. So let's fast forward to 1994. And again, this is showing the systemic nature of baldness. They say, our findings show multi-layered hormonal influences in male pattern baldness. Then skipping ahead to 2013, one of my favorite papers that I talk about incessantly, and I'm sure anybody who reads my stuff is probably really sick of it, but this is by Vidali et al. And they say, the current data also provides clinically relevant pointers to how hair follicle aging and disease correlated with declining mitochondrial function might be effectively counteracted in the future by endogenous neurohormones produced in the human epithelium, e.g. the TRH and TSH. This also applies to thyroid hormones, which have long been known to modulate hair shaft quality and or pigmentation. Both TRH and T4 are administered routinely in thyroid medicine and are FDA-approved agents with a well-known toxicity profile. Therefore, regulatory hurdles to reposition these hormones for novel mitochondrial hair medicine approaches are relatively low. And so, I mean, it couldn't get better than this, really. And the idea that hair loss is a low energy condition in this paper is talking about using thyroid hormones as mitochondrial hair medicine. So that's obviously one of my special papers. And so I won't belabor this video too long. Let's just I'll leave you with one other quote from 2014. And it says, recent years have witnessed a considerable progress in the research focused on treatment of hair disorders, but with limited success. Common diseases such as alopecia areata, telogen effluvium, and male pattern baldness until then will remain unsolved medical problems. And so there's a large group on the internet that will say baldness is totally cured. All you have to do is take the big three, Nizoral, finasteride, and minoxidil. These are really safe and really effective. And anybody that goes to a major street in any major city, just look around you and see how many bald men you see. And the idea that those are effective and that this many bald men are walking around because they choose to be bald, basically, because these substances are widely known about, that doesn't pass the smell test. And then, of course, objectively, just looking through the research, I think finasteride is commonly said to be somewhere around 40% effective, and I think minoxidil is even less. So it's you're just going to encounter people that are just totally, I don't think you're going to get through to them. They just think that's the only option, and so they put all their chips on it, and then they'll tell other people that it is also effective. So it's just like a bunch of people, I feel like, parroting each other. But maybe that's like the state of baldness research puts people in a learned helplessness situation, and it's kind of like sad. So hopefully this changes some people's minds, or causes them to do further research in different areas and get out of the idea that if you want to save your hair, the only thing you can do is take finasteride. So thank you so much for watching this video. Sincerely appreciate it. Check out the Patreon, which I wanted to touch on. I've been getting lots of emails. My Patreon has been around for a long time, but I don't like selling things because I think that is an unobjective way to pursue science or look into science in a critical way. And I don't mind selling my time, but I didn't think selling hard goods was a good idea, or even digital things. So I thought everything I should make should be free, but I had never minded selling my time. And so some people have a serious issue with that, and we'll have to agree to disagree, but I like sharing things, and so putting a price tag on things I make seems really off to me. And so that was my main idea when using the Patreon, and I thought it liberated me creatively in a lot of different ways. So again, sincerely appreciate you guys watching the video. Hit the like button is almost as good as contributing on Patreon, so I sincerely appreciate that. And then leave any comments or criticisms in the comment section, and I'll try to get to them if possible. Thanks guys, I'll talk to you soon. Bye.